Well, Paul, welcome to the program. Great to catch up, and a road trip, eh? A roadie starting on Tuesday in Ashburton. Tell us about the reasons behind this.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. So Federated Farmers has been in favour of RMA reform, we should say, for quite a number of years now, and probably going back 20 years. We think the RMA, it ties people up in too much red tape, but it's become very litigious as well. So we've got regional plan changes in Southland and Waikato now that have been in the courts for 7 years, and Feds just spends a huge amount of money going through the process with these judges, and at the end of it, we get a policy for these regions which doesn't really reflect what the local community wants. It's become very litigious. So the first thing to say is that we do really support RMA reform, but it was unfortunate the government and the opposition National Party have both said yes, they agree we do need RMA reform. But what's highly unfortunate is the bill that the Labour Party's released and is before us now, we think just goes completely the wrong direction. It actually probably makes everything we've come to hate about the current RMA worse. And there's some other things out in there as well, which we can talk about in a moment. So that's unfortunate, but it is important to emphasise we are in favour of RMA reform, but we need to really raise the alarm bells on what's been put in front of us.
So what is the main issue with what's been put in front of you?
Well, there's kind of two buckets to kind of consider. First of all the things that make the RMA difficult to deal with are in this as well. And generally what happens is when you put some vague terms in a bill, like upholding the well-being of future generations, or in this case, the mana, the Māori, and the ecological integrity of air, water and soil will be in this new bill. That means that it makes it very hard for regional councils to actually do anything without being challenged in the courts, because how could anyone write any plan with the full confidence that they'll get that right? Those terms are just a little bit too vague for the average regional council. So those things are all still in this, and we think farmers will have just as many resource consents and the processes will be just as litigious. But on top of that, they want to shift everything from district councils and regional councils, which we elect in our communities, to these new regional planning committees. And they'll have a structure more or less the same as Three Waters. So every council will get one person on this planning committee, and then there'll be iwi appointed to sit alongside it. So we're worried that that's going to be at arm's length from the local community and mean that decisions are made not by someone who you can unelect in 3 years' time, but someone who you're going to be stuck with for whether you like it or not.
So the RMA hasn't been really touched for 3 decades or thereabouts, I understand, and the idea was not for these reforms to make it simpler? Is that what I gather?
That's what everyone would like to see, and that's where the government said they were heading. And to be fair, there's probably a few things you can point to in the process, but it's at some point it's lost that kind of mode, that reason for being, and it's looking like what we can see is essentially rewriting the current RMA, but worse, and then on top of it putting this. Unfortunately, what we tend to see in most reforms from this government is that they don't trust local communities to get things right. So whether it's the polytech reform, the health reform, the Three Waters reform, and even the water and the freshwater ones where we see central government kind of writing the rules for farming, and now this RMA reform. When we talk to officials in Wellington, they tend to say, "Oh, look, these district councils in Ashburton or Wanganui, they just don't have the capacity to do these things." And so Wellington, we need to make it bigger, and we need to bring it into the Wellington sphere. But time and time again, once Wellington gets their hands on it, it actually gets worse. And we've seen that already with the polytech reform and the health reform going quite badly. We think we'll see it in the Three Waters space, and we're certain we'll see it with the RM reforms as well. So I think it is useful to view what's happening here in a broader context of a government that just doesn't trust local communities to kind of be in charge of their own destiny.
So the roadshows begin Tuesday in Ashburton, and what form will they take? Is it just you and I know Mark Hooper from Feds, you've got the tax group involved as well?
So we're in Ashburton Tuesday evening at 6 p.m. at the Ashburton Club and MCA. From there we move to Alexandra on Wednesday evening, Core on Thursday, Invercargill on Friday, and then the following week we'll be in Masterton, Palmerston North, Wanganui, and then on the eve of the field days we'll be in New Plymouth and then Te Awamutu. And I think the key thing here is it's about coming along and hearing more about how these reforms are going to impact you, but also it's fair to say these reforms haven't been in the media spotlight, and what we really need to do is send a signal to Wellington and the mainstream media that actually this reform is something that farmers do care about and does need more coverage. So it's really great if farmers can come along, even just to show that there's a big crowd out there that do care about these reforms and are willing to stand up to protect that local democracy. I think that'll be a successful roadshow.